Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now.
I know. Well, that's not a good look, Deana Williams. So what is going on there? I asked you in the green room a little earlier, but what's going on there in Little Rock, Arkansas? I've never been to Arkansas.
In Little Rock, there's always something to do. You can visit the Presidential Clinton Library. We have a lot of attractions there downtown. And there's also a lot of things that you can do that are family oriented as well, different library, different museums. We also are home to the Little Rock 9 Central High School. That is one of the main attractions for sure that people come to visit.
Well, that is wonderful. That is wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here with me and my brains on the edge. Brains, look, you're at the spot. I'm gonna drop the card. Oh Lord, I've got another one. The place where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a woman of deep faith with us today. We have Deana Williams from Little Rock, Arkansas, and she has a very harrowing story that she's going to share with all of us. Going to bring the hairs up on the back of your neck. She is a survivor of what they thought was cancer, but things are not always what they appear to be. She's an author and a speaker. Help me welcome her to the edge. Hello, Deana.
Hello.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I can't complain. I'm gonna come down a little bit, so I'll be level with you.
All right.
I'm doing pretty good, actually. It's been a very different year for me. I lost my mom this year, but business has been good, so life is a roller coaster. You're good on one aspect and it's funky on the other.
Most definitely in my sincere prayers and condolences to the loss of your mom as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I tell people all the time I'm bent, but I'm not broken, because it's a journey, and that's our ultimate destination, everybody on the planet.
Yes.
But it's all about how you process it. It's how you go through life struggles. It's how you come out victorious on the other side. Share with us a little bit about your story.
A little bit about me. I am the second of 6 children born to James and Dolores Williams. We were born and raised in the Delta, which is eastern Arkansas, which is on the border of Mississippi and Arkansas. Like I said, I'm the second of 6. I'm a mom of 1. I have been in the field of physical therapy for over 28 years. I'm also a licensed minister, and as you said, an author, speaker, coach, and I'm also an advocate for youth, and I'm an advocate for survivors of sexual assault as well.
Wow. Well, you got a lot of things that you're doing right there. Physical therapy. Let's start there. Girl, that's a lot of heavy lifting. I'm about to see a physical therapist right now, too. It's a lot of work. And people don't take their physical therapy seriously. They figure they can go to 1 or 2 sessions and they're going to be healed. But it's not. It takes the body a long time to heal. I don't even know how athletes do it. I watch the football game and I see them get bumps and bruises. Then they put them in that ice bath, girl, and then they up playing the next week. Why did you choose physical therapy, and really tell people the importance of going through your whole process and keeping that ongoing, because those muscles tighten back up?
Most definitely. Well, I've always said that it's divine intervention. When I speak of my youth and my childhood, I was moved around after the death of my parents and dealt with the abuse. However, I wanted to be a social worker because my aunt, who was like my mentor or my Oprah at the time, if you will, I wanted to be like her, and I had had enough problems. So I thought I could help people fix their problems. So I wanted to be a social worker. That was going to be what I was going to do with my life. And after being in school a few years and even dealing with depression, and a depression block is what she and I kind of discovered throughout my 3rd year, she said, well, why don't you consider the field of physical therapy? I hear it's going to be one of the jobs of the future. And I went over and I spoke with the advisor, changed my major, looked at it, had no idea about physical therapy, to be honest with you. And my advisor advised me to do anything but physical therapy. Every time I went to the advisor, he had another major that maybe I should consider. Why don't
Right.
I consider this salary? Why don't I consider this? Now I'm 18 in school and I'm raising my younger brother and
Mm.
working 3 jobs while I'm in school full time. So I felt like it was divine intervention because it became a passion and certainly a love of mine. I work in geriatric with the geriatric population, which is my calling. I get to not only encourage them, but I get to improve their quality of life. But I get to also draw from them as they draw from me, but just focusing on their health, on their healing and their restoration. And as far as therapy as a whole, it is very important to follow the protocols, follow the lifestyle changes. If you have an injury, even as a younger adult, it affects you in your latter years. And that's where we tend to see a lot of people that have lack of mobility or immobility for that reason from injuries as a child that maybe they didn't properly treat. So therapy is very important and it's important to seek treatment, but take the whole treatment, go through the whole treatment and listen to your therapist, you know?
And continue to stretch and work it out, do Pilates, yoga, or walk or something, because I'm telling you, I'm a woman of a particular age and I'm getting some kinks. And, if I don't get up and stretch it in the morning, it's a long day for me.
Oh, yes.
So let's go back to the death of your parents and the raising of your brother. Tell us what happened.
So my mom, at the age of 7, my mom died from an accidental gunshot wound on Easter night. There were 6 of us. The oldest was 7 and the youngest was 1. So my baby sister doesn't really know my mom. It was funny that this week someone sent me a picture of me, probably in my 20s. And I kept saying, oh, this picture doesn't look like me, but it reminds me of someone. And I found a picture of my mom and I put it side by side. My daughter thought it was me. That's how much we look alike. But my mom died when I was 7 from an accidental gunshot wound. And 5 years later, a young man entered our home and robbed and killed my father on Labor Day of 1982. And from that point on, people wanted to keep us together, but it's easier said than done. And so for a year, 6 of us stayed together. We moved with my dad's eldest son, but we took them from middle class to poverty. They went from 2 household working family, income family, however, with 4 children, middle class. Now they have 10 children. We've thrust them into poverty and other issues would arise as well. And so eventually 4 of us, they kept the 2 younger girls and 4 of us moved to Ohio. So there were times that we moved with people and it's like, oh, come bring them. And then a day they said, I can't do this, come get them. So moving from house to house, state to state, with different people that were related or not became a way of life. And that's kind of what put me at risk. And then the situation where I ended up and started dealing with the abuse of the physical abuse, molestation and rape. You're vulnerable. Who can you tell? Do you know that you can tell? Will anyone believe you? What did you do?
Right. And it was absolutely, horrific from one thing to another. Did your siblings go through the same experience?
What I figured out in the latter years is that not through the entire process or to the extent that I did. One may have said, oh, one night someone touched on me, but no one was violated to the level where I was. And which I'm grateful, because if I had to do it to keep them from going through it, I would do it again, because you don't want anyone to go through that. It changes you forever. It changes the way you give love, the way you receive love. It changes you, how you feel about yourself, how you love yourself, if you love yourself, if you see yourself worthy or not. And also deals with other things that affect your relationships on so many different facets. Trust, love, are you worthy of that relationship? Do you desire that relationship? What is that relationship going to cost you? And is vulnerability weakness or is vulnerability strength? And can you give the roles and responsibilities to someone else, or are you afraid that they're going to fail you? And so you set up fear of releasing and letting go, and you tend to want to hold on to everything when you really would love to surrender some things.
You do want to surrender them, but then again, like you say, who can you trust without judgment? And that's the last thing that you want. And then what happens, unfortunately, is that in relationships, you draw that same type of personality because that's what you have been indoctrinated with when it comes to love. That's what you were taught. This is the framework that it was built around. How did you break free of that? How did you eventually find love for yourself?
how did I find love for myself? I'm still searching now. But self-love came because while I was in college, so even dealing with all those things with family, in high school, I also dealt with a family friend and I was raped. So it was like one layer of the next layer, and family, even my father's friends who knew that we had had a certain lifestyle would often try to get me to come with them. Oh, I know what you would like. I know what you do. So they always tried to do things to make me take a different road. But I thank God that He kept me when I didn't keep myself. And as I continued in life, I did look for love in all the wrong places for so many years. And because I was looking for something to fill the void that I didn't know that was there, or that I denied was there. But as I was in college, I had a friend that was dealing with, he found out that his grandfather had kind of fondled all the girls in their family by giving them come right on Papa's knee.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yes, and so my this was one of my best friends in college. He was a male. He had just given his life to God. So he was really new in faith, new in religion, even if I would say at that point, or spirituality, I would say today. And he had given his life to God. And then here's this news that just kind of shatters everything. And he's ready to, let go of his faith, and why this, why that. And he was thinking it was only my household. This had only happened with my relatives. And I said, no, let me tell you what I've been through. And so I started to share with him about the things that I had gone through, because I would walk from class and just cry when no one was in sight. And as soon as they come, I dry my eyes. I pledged my sorority. People didn't know what I was dealing with, what I was going through. And I never saw myself graduating from college. And that night, when I started to tell him about what I went through, it became a part of my healing process. And so I started to share and I started to tell. But it was later in life, really, that I got to the point when I thought I was going through a health scare, and I decided to take my life back. And that was the beginning of, and I was around 28. And that's when I really became more empowered, because before then I was accepting love and I was thankful for the love that was given to me, however it was given to me. And I would call it good because it was better than I had already had.
Mm, mm, mm. Wow. Yeah, exactly. If you don't have any examples, you create it for itself. So you decide to start speaking about it,
Yeah.
to free yourself and to support others. Tell us a little bit about your speaking and your book.
Speaking about it really just became, what I realized is that the more I spoke about it, the more I began to heal, and the better I felt. And it helped other people, because it was usually me telling someone that had gone through something, or in my speaking about it, other people started to come to share with me about what they had experienced as well. But for the most part, I think the more, what I realized is that I would joke all the time, and I would tell people that if I died, they were going to need two caskets, one for me and one for my secrets. And I was joking, but I was so serious, because there were so many things that I didn't tell my brothers, my sisters, my family. I'd held on to all the secrets and the skeletons. And so I was walking around with all this baggage, and I was walking around with all this history and this baggage, and this victim mentality. And the more I told it, I started to release things, and my load became lighter. And I started realizing that, you know what, I don't have to remain a victim. I can become a victor. And when that shift starts to take place, you're no longer telling your story as a sad story, but you're saying, hey, this was my story, but here's my song. Yeah, and I began to feel
have
that.
One heroin story. I mean,
not sure. I had the guy that raped me, I got the opportunity. I used to always say, if I see him, I'll tell him this. If I see him, I'm going to do that. And I had the opportunity to confront the guy that raped me. And when I got to him and I asked him, did he know who I was? He looked at me and he vaguely knew who I was. So I kind of said, okay, I'm related to, and I gave him my sister's name. He's like, oh yeah, I remember. And I said, y'all own the businesses. Y'all are a pretty prominent family. I said, have you ever taken anything from anyone? And he said, no. And we're in the middle of a busy street during a blues fest, which is King Biscuit, which is what's internationally known also in my hometown. And he's just looking at me. And I said, have you ever taken anything that wasn't yours? And he was like, no. And I said, yes, you did. You took me from me.
Wow.
And his mouth just dropped open and he looked. And in that moment, I was done. In that moment, I realized life had already dealt with him. The best thing I could do was pray for him, because what I realized.
Let me ask you something. Did you find forgiveness for him, or no? Forgiveness because forgiveness is something for self. But did you find a forgiveness for him or a compassion for him at all, even though through all of that?
Most definitely, because like I said, I've been a victim. And what I know is as a victim, it's about them. When you are healed or healing, it becomes more about you. And you either stay and make them a victim, or you decide that you're going to be a victor. So for him, when I looked at him, I realized life had already dealt with him. And so the best thing I can do is pray for you, because that's what the word says. And I'm also a minister. So I'm supposed to forgive people. I'm supposed to love the ones that didn't treat me well. I'm supposed to pray for them. And I've learned that in my forgiving journey, in my grace journey, just as God does us, we have to be able to call them by name. And it's not when it's always good, and it's not when it feels like what we want it to feel like, or looks like what we want to look like, but what are we held accountable to? And so I did. I can't say I don't get, and you know that you've moved on and you've forgiven him. I can speak on it, and I don't have this trigger. I can speak about it because I had to also stop saying life happened to me and start saying that life happened for me.
Right.
And in that, saying that because it did happen to me, I can help other people. I can speak to other people. I can speak to younger generations and show them what it looks like. Hey, don't go in this dark room. Hey, don't go behind this door. Hey, don't put yourself in this situation. And I have a daughter myself, and I said, hey, no one needs to read to you. You read, or if you go and you stay in certain houses, and there are fathers or brothers there, make sure you have on pajamas. There are certain things you can do. But even in that, I had two nieces that dealt with assault that came to me from their college years when they couldn't go to their parents. And they said, because you've spoke about this, we don't have to suffer in silence for 30 years. Because you've done this, we don't have to not tell anyone. We can tell you, and you can help us process this. They've invited me to their different college groups. I go to high schools, I've gone to colleges, and I speak about it. And most people say I don't look like what I've been through. People that have dealt with sexual assault don't have a look. They don't have a certain posture.
It can be anybody. It's 1 in 4.
Yes.
And a lot of men are subjected to sexual assault, and they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it. Now, you're a woman of deep faith, a woman of the church. All right, brains, y'all go and get crunchy now if you want to, because I'm going to go ahead and say it. Sometimes the church is not as supportive as we'd like for them to be. Mm-hmm. There is a veil of silence. There is sometimes there's some indiscretion that's going on right there in the house of the Lord. The church is for sinners. It's not for saints. We're all there trying to find salvation. But when you go into a house of worship and you've got deep, dark secrets, we always go to the pulpit and, shout and scream and praise. But when you go to people in your church and they don't understand, it breaks you in a different kind of way. It breaks your spirit. It seems like you're more angry with God. You are more the victim. Why me? Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you protect me? Why can't the pastor do this for me? Why ain't the first lady there for me? How does a person find themselves and not be so dependent on outside influences? Does that make sense?
It does. And I was trying to answer that question, but you made so many points. But you're right. We go to church and we think that our help is there. And what I've come to realize is that you go to church, but you go also to serve. But I've been in the church, and I'm working on a project now about church hurts and letdowns and breakdowns. But what I realized that if you come half full, then you'll get some of what you need. You may not get it all. But at the same time, I think we in religion, or we in traditions, don't speak the truth. We don't seek and ask the church or hold them accountable, because we also don't want them to hold us accountable. We know that if they're not doing all they need to do, then they won't really hold us accountable. So we get to kind of make that word work for us as well. But I believe that truly when you're in the church and you have a spiritual relationship with God, it has nothing to do with that building, that address, that pastor, those members. Absolutely. However, we don't want to fail to fellowship one to another. You were speaking of what happens then. I'm a I've been through a lot, and I can tell you, I had an indirect resentment towards God, and I didn't know that. And for some people to say that would be wrong, or, can you say that?
Right.
God, it's one thing to preach and teach that God knows you. He knows the hairs on your head. He knew you before you were conceived. But yet you think he doesn't know your heart? You think he doesn't know your truth?
Right.
He says, come before me, and honestly, tell me how you feel. God, I'm so angry. I'm hurt. I feel like you let me down. I feel like, you've forgotten about me. God, I feel like the weight of the world is on me. Can you help me? And for me, with my parents and all that I went through, as a younger child, before getting even more involved in church, I would go home, and the whole church, I would testify, because the Church of God in Christ, we have testimony service, and the whole church would cry. And the pastor would say, pray about it. Can you tell me what it is so I can pray about it? But as I later grew, and I would say even got wisdom, I realized it was an indirect resentment towards God. Not that I didn't love God, not that I didn't believe God, but God, if you hadn't allowed my parents to die, then I wouldn't have been in a situation to go through these things. And so as you deal with that, but I remember one day someone started to ask me about my mom's death, and I could recount it verbatim. And somebody asked me, and I was like, well, let me think, hold on. And I realized in that moment that a shift had taken place, and so in that moment, you just build on it. So I knew to go to church. I knew to be in God. I was going out and doing other things as well, but I would go to church. That was in me. But I became a licensed minister, pastor. I was the church clerk, the pastor secretary. I did everything, was busy for God and serving and doing all that I could with my daughter. And my pastor passed, got a new pastor. He says, he didn't believe in women pastors. He didn't believe in women ministers, but you won't be honest. So let me tell you, talk about, yeah. But God called me, but you get to sit me down. How does that work?
Right. Wow. That's a whole different show right there. That's a whole different show, because they just, it's strange. It's like an old boy network, and
yes.
That's not how it goes. They came through the portal of a woman. They came through the womb. So
yes.
They better try to recognize, and raised by a woman.
Yes.
So tell me about your book. Let me see a copy of that great piece of literary.
All right. The book is Get Moved.
Okay, hold on. Let me get a gallery picture of you here. Be moved, mapping out victory each day. Well, that sounds like an assignment.
It is an assignment. It's actually based on Ecclesiastes. Everything, there is a season. It's a 12-week journey, and you do something every day for 90 days. Basically, if you want to change and you want your mindset to change, you want your lifestyle to change, you need to take action. And so this is not about your role, your title. This is not about who you are to everyone else. This book is about self-empowerment through self-discoveries, because a lot of times people are, I would say people think that they're the sum total of what happened to them or where they grew up or who they were raised around. Who are you, if I asked you? Who are you aside from the titles? Who are you aside from anything else? What do you want? What do you require? What do you need? And what is your purpose? What were you designed for?
Right. And what's your bandwidth and your tolerance and your boundaries?
Yes.
Your expectations, all of that.
What's your truth?
But sometimes the truth hurts. Let's keep it 100. The truth hurts. It makes us more vulnerable. Sometimes it breaks people. I talk to a lot of people on my show that do deep work with hypnosis or Reiki or energy work, past life regressions, epigenetics. All of these things take you back into that place. A lot of times people don't want to repeat that. They don't want to face their fear. But you got to face your fear to be able to develop a future. Wouldn't you agree?
You do. And I pulled out the bookmark here. And so this is my personal quote that's actually on the bookmark. And it says, you cannot heal what you're unwilling to reveal. And I totally believe that. Your truth may hurt. It may be uncomfortable, but your truth is going to yield transparency, and transparency is going to transform. Right.
So you have to be bare naked. You just have to pull back all the layers.
You do.
You have a daughter. What are you pouring into her?
I pour so much in her, but at the same time, I was very careful because I didn't want my issues to become her issues. I wanted her to know and experience healthy relationships, and I wanted her to know what she required as a person. I taught her what she deserved. I taught her that you teach people how to treat you. And I also taught her that people don't get to treat you how they want to treat you. They treat you how you deserve to be treated, but you must know first how you deserve to be treated. I also, we're in the situation where her father's not present. And so statistics says that you're going to be your dadless daughter. Statistics says this. So what I raised her believing that, hey, you're not raised in a single parent household. You're raised by your mom who just so happens to be single. That you are a standard by which other people can measure themselves. You're not a statistic. And that is the mindset that I poured into her. That is the lifestyle that I made sure that she embodied. I told her, people will talk about, oh, you're pretty for a dark skinned girl. Hey, you're tall. So I put her in modeling. I put her in dance. I put her in gymnastics. I told her, you don't have to open the door, wait for somebody to open the door, kick the door down, knock the walls down. You get to command what it is you want.
Absolutely. What do you say to the absent father? Not particularly your situation, but there are so many, and it is for so many reasons. And I don't want to justify. I can humanize them not being there. Sometimes it's a blessing that they're not there because it could be a lot more chaotic. But what do you say to the father that has stepped away from their child? How do they maybe re-enter that relationship, or how do they find solace within themselves for being absent?
First and foremost, I speak to all three because this is a personal situation for me. So for me, I had to make sure that I took me out of it. So if there were children, other siblings, I made sure she knew them. I got to know the other moms. That's not always the case, but I took me out of it, and I took my emotions out of it because you want to do what's right by the child. Secondly, I spoke to my child. And while I was angry and mad and bitter, I had to also deal with what I was dealing with about me. And so I didn't pour that into my child. I didn't speak ill of him. I didn't give all of that weight to her. As far as her, I said, the Bible says that you're to honor your parents, your mother and your father. God's going to hold you accountable for that, not how he treated you or did not treat you. You always respect him. If you see him, he speaks to you and calls you, answer. Now, you don't owe him necessarily the time for a story, but you have to respect him because that's what you're held to. You be the bigger person and you allow him to hold that. And my daughter actually is 19. And in February, she sent him a text and just said, I forgive you and release you. I raised her with a full life mentality, not an absent father mentality. And I think that's what we have to do to the absent father who's not there. Are they not there for a reason? Sometimes they're part of the need, the seed, and not a part of the need. You're right. It could be very different. But I would tell any father that relationship is important. And if there's any way for them to reconcile it whenever they can. Tomorrow's not promised. But I had a revelation when she was 13. My father was the best dad till he was taken away from us that night when I was 12. But the Holy Spirit revealed, you're never going to know her father. She's never going to know yours. So sometimes we just have to sit in our truths, understand our truths, and use them for our good and work that. And that's what I've done. So I don't speak ill of them. We can have conversations. We also had growing up, we had dead men's talk. So there's a moment where I think sometimes parents have to be willing to do what's best for the child and listen, not only listen to their mouth, listen to their heart, watch their actions, but when there comes a time that you feel like there's something that you can't do and that other parent, because sometimes it's the mom that's not there. We can be honest, it's both.
It's there, or sometimes it can be the mom is the reason that the dad is not there because
correct.
Okay,
yes.
I've seen the step-parent situation to where there's been manipulation on both sides.
Yes.
Use the child as a pawn.
Yes.
Don't want to pay the child support. Really? Child support is support, brains. It's not you're not there when they sick. You're not there for the baseball. You're not there for the homework. You're not there for the teacher conference, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to give a little $5, $6, $7, $800 a month. If you're rolling like that, go and do what's right. That's the least you could do.
Right.
That's a whole nother story too.
Right. And that conversation was had, and I think the conversation, that's like 25%. I said, well, it's 100% of mine. It's 100% of my pay, 100% of my time. But what I did is
and it's not for 18 years. If you're a righteous parent, it's from the womb to the tomb.
It is. And I thank that God that my choice was to be better and not bitter. So even in my growth spiritually, that became a part of my turning point, because I was so angry and mad at him. And so I had to start praying for him. And I help other women now. Hey, I need you to call him by name. I need you to pray for him. That's what the word is. Pray for your enemies. And I ask God, whatever your will is for his life. I don't pray that he becomes this dad that I think he should be. I don't pray that he becomes a friend that I need. I pray that your will in his life be done. And I accept that he may not ever be that dad or father to her. I accept that. But I know that you are capable of putting people in her life that will hold that role and help her and help mold and shape her.
Right. So now you're doing some coaching. Tell us a little bit about your coaching program.
So coaching, for the most part, I am a transformational life coach. So in other words, it's okay to inspire you. It's okay to motivate you. But my goal is to help transform you. The thing that I had to do for me was to decide to take my life back because of my past, because of my history. I pretty much was voiceless. I didn't feel loved or worthy. And at the same time, I was powerless, so to speak. But at the age of 28, when I was just about to have that breakdown and my engagement had broke off because it was not my husband, and I knew that up front, God put me by myself to get to know me and to get to know him and draw closer. And in that moment at 28, after thinking I was having a heart attack and other things, and I was a workaholic because you shift from one thing to the other, I decided to take my life back and take my power back. So I help people to deal with the young girl or the young boy inside, because hurt children, broken children become hurt and broken adults. Absolutely. And so you've got to heal that young girl or the young boy. So we do mirror work. But the thing about coaching is that friends love you enough to love you where you are. Coaches love you enough not to leave you where you are.
All right. Now, I love that. Yeah, because they're trying to really help you get to the finish line.
Yes.
And you're always going to go back. I tell people, it's always not a straight line. You're not going to go thrust forward. Sometimes you got to bob and weave. Sometimes you got to step back. Sometimes you get knocked down. But what's important is that you get back up. So I want to ask you some random questions. Throw some stuff out and see what you'll say.
Okay.
Okay, Deana, what brings you the greatest joy?
Family, laughter.
Family and laughter. What brings you to tears?
People suffering.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is blue, and it represents my character and personality.
What does your Prince Charming look like? Give me 4 or 5 characteristics of your Prince Charming.
God-fearing, family-oriented, capable of unconditional love, and someone that desires to be loved. Someone that's perfectly imperfect and willing to grow with me.
Right. I got a big bank account.
That can be a plus.
It can be a plus. It is not necessary, but you need somebody that's evenly yoked, because there's a lot of women out there that want to take care of a man. Don't get me wrong. If you like it, I love it. But you got to come evenly yoked, because it's an expectation. I'm old school. I want to be taken care of.
Okay.
I don't mind cooking. I don't mind doing that. But women have emasculated men so much now that it's hard for a good man to, introduce himself to a woman without her thinking that he's doing something wrong. How do women flirt? How do you go out and flirt again?
I'm working on that. I'll tell you all about now.
Wow.
Honestly, I did. I delved into from being from work, then to mom, and then to church. So I tell people all the time, I was single for a long time because I didn't want people in and out with my daughter.
Right.
And I'm open now and I'm willing now. And so now there is a transition that takes place. However, I become open to conversation. However, at the same time, I do know what I require. So
Absolutely.
I tend to shut things off, cut things off. I had a guy that called me for so long, and I was like, "You don't need me as a girlfriend. You need me as a coach."
Wow. Right,
And
right.
yes, and understanding that I'm not a fixer and I don't have to save people, because for so long I did. I was there to fix, I was there to catch, I was there to save. And so now I'm in a different place. And so I want to see who you are and what it is that you need. And I think that's important. When you come to the table, don't come to just hear what I need. Be able to speak your needs and your requirements. And at the same time, I don't want to have to play small.
Right.
you know.
Let me ask you about the imposter syndrome and victim mentality a little bit.
Okay.
Because I say this with love. I have not experienced a lot of trauma that a lot of women have had, so I have a lot of empathy for them.
Okay.
But they use it kind of as a crutch.
Okay.
They'll introduce themselves. They'll say, "Hi, my name is Betty, and I am a victim of sexual assault."
Okay.
Sometimes that's a trigger for individuals.
Okay.
That's a way for people to judge you. That's a way for a man to try to manipulate you. All those kind of things. Do you think that a woman can tell her story, be intimate, and build a relationship without exploring that part of who they are and sharing that? Or do you think that they should be totally transparent and open and say everything? I think they should hold back a little bit. Just depends.
I honestly believe that it depends on the person, because speaking their truth may be their number one value. Someone else may not want to share anything. For me, I tell people I don't bring it as my baggage, because if you walk in and, "Hi, I'm Deana, here's my story," then you're dumping. There's a difference. But I think that if you are in a conversation, there are times and places to have conversations. And you do, though, if there's something that triggers you and you think this is a potential mate, you look at the time. Your first two dates,
Right.
keep it just casual and get to know each other. Sometimes we are married in 5 minutes. So I try to tell people, stop marrying everybody in 5 minutes. Stop trying to figure out what your grandchildren or stepchildren are going to look like. Enjoy the journey and stop focusing on the destination.
Because it's all about the courtship.
It is.
I want the flowers. I want to go to dinner. I want to be giggly when you call me on the phone. I like that romance. I'm in love with love.
Yes. You don't see that, but that's the thing. I think being able to articulate that, sometimes the people that tell you their story, they're not able to tell you what it is that they need, because maybe they haven't gone through the process. Maybe they haven't healed. Maybe they're still dealing with some things. So a lot of times it should depend on where they are in their healing journey, because once you're healed, you tend to speak on who you are, not necessarily who you were.
Yeah, because you talk about a healing journey, and I think of women that have been severely traumatized by sex. That the abuser, from what I've been told and what I understand, is grooming you to make this an intimate, loving experience. They don't want it to be violent. They don't want it to be painful, because they want you to desire them. But it's so hard to separate that desire when you try to find intimacy for yourself and finding love and not feeling shame and not being not being embarrassed about who you are or what you've been through. What would you say to a woman that is going through that right now?
I would say that if this is someone that's going through it and they have not maybe found a support group or haven't been able to even speak it out loud, because if you can't speak it out loud and it's still your secret, you have not began the healing process. You're nowhere in that journey. And I think any relationship will trigger it. And so you're at risk to even damage what could be potentially a great relationship. Find a group that maybe you don't know anyone in that group, so you can speak your truth and you don't feel judged. And a lot of times we don't tell our family and our friends the things that we feel like you tell your secrets to your family and friends. So you want to be able to sit in an environment where you can do that. I was so much further along in my journey, but I still decided to go and sit in on a group. And in that group, there were people that were 60 telling their story. It was their day one. For me, I could speak about it and talk about it and hopefully help someone else. So make sure you're there before you're trying to give it to someone else, or before you're ready to try to look for love when you're not going to be able to experience love in that natural way or the way that it was intended. Because if you've been violated, a lot of times touchy feely doesn't go with
No.
if you haven't moved past that point, you know. So
Yeah.
you definitely want to do that.
Well, you have been a wealth of information, Deana. Yes, you are. Please tell
Thank
my
you.
brains how to get in contact with you. I want them to sit down and have a conversation with you, to consult you, because, this is a way to heal. It's a way to grow. It's a way to become a better parent. It's a way for you to release any sexual inhibitions that you have. And self-love. This is a way for you to spread your wings and soar. And we have great people like Deana that are really ready to, to do the deep dive and put themselves on the chopping block and share with you their intimate secrets to help you heal. Folks don't have to do that. They could just say, I don't give a, and, just go on and do whatever. But she's doing that. And she's doing it in the name of God and, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And if that's not your spiritual God, it might be something that you might need to be introduced to as well.
And that is true. Spirituality definitely matters. And thank you. It's definitely been my pleasure as well to be on the edge with you, April Mahoney. I certainly enjoyed this interview. But you can reach me via LinkedIn, any social media platform. LinkedIn, Deana Williams, Facebook, Deana Williams, Instagram @GetMove. My book is also on Amazon, or you can contact me as well.
Let's see the book one more time. Let me see it one more time.
Great. Life Coach Deana Williams @gmail.com. Also, I'm a local contributor on THV 11 here in Little Rock. So you can even contact me through them and they will get your message to me as well.
And you know what, Brains? It's not about a color line. It's not just about sisters. It's about women in general. We're talking about a soul connection, heart to heart. So don't think that, because of one thing or another, that you can't be helped, because that's really where you find your greatest gifts, is when you look at something and it's not an exact mirror reflection. Because Reverend Al Sharpton told me, and I'll never forget this. He go, baby, he said, that mirror that you're looking at, it's not just for your reflection, but it's also a place to make corrections.
That is so true. Love that.
Yeah. And I love you. Thank you so much for being here on The Edge. Brains, you know what I need you to do? I need you to go ahead and subscribe right now. Okay. I'm trying to top out some numbers before we close out this year. I really would like to see you as a subscriber on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. Go in, like, love, and share this information. Leave a comment, because what me and Deana think that you need, you might need something totally different. And we're not able to fulfill that need until you do what? Open your mouth and tell us what you need. Thank you so much.
Thank you.